Oh, it's 2:58.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we were about to start in 2 minutes.
2 minutes early. Sorry.
That's your negative 2 minute warning.
Yes, negative 2 minutes.
You look like some. I look very Nordic, but I am not Nordic.
I like that.
Yeah, I apparently look Nordic for a Dutch person. I'm sure there are other Dutch people.
From Denmark,
Yeah. Yes, you kind of does. Although I might look more Nordic than heavy on kids that looks out.
Yeah. The problem is I have my watch a few minutes ahead. So it's helpful for me, but not for core people. Still.
I also did not follow you. Oh, this one is. I'm now reading investments.
Oh, it's for Coke.
No.
Is this just the head?
Jasmine are from the U.S. We just from the U.S. but not from France. That's from the UK.
I think the natural hush is around.
My voice is going.
Now for us.
Are there any things we need to know about?
All right, we're going to convene. We're going to convene. We're going to start. You saying? Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for being here.
Microphone.
Oh, microphone.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Streaming is run.
Okay, I'm going to use this. So, thank you everybody here joining us in the room, on the live stream. This is going to be a session about flow, talk pages, and the future of on-wiki collaboration. For those of you that are not supposed to be in this room or don't want to be in the room, now is a good time to leave gracefully. Okay, everyone's supposed to be here. For those of you sticking around, my name is Peter Pelberg. I'm the product manager for the editing team. We are the team at the foundation that is going to start the work on improving talk pages. There are kind of three main things that we want you to walk away with, if nothing else. The first of which is that the goal of all of this work is to help people work together more effectively. Yes, talk pages do serve as a communication tool, but ultimately the goal of this work is to help contributors be more productive. The second is, this is a partnership. You're going to hear the word we a lot throughout the course of this presentation, and that's really meant to mean we, us, everyone in this room, all of contributors. We have a lot of questions that we genuinely need help answering. And the last thing is, we are not replacing talk pages, we are going to improve them. So with that in mind, this is going to be kind of a quick journey through the present, the more recent past, the further distant past, back to the present, and then the future. So if you can deal with that non-linear time thing, it'll be okay. All right. So just kind of grounding us, after this, we really want this to be a discussion. So there is an Etherpad right here. If you can pull that up if you do have a device. If we say something and it's like, yo, that's not right, or that really resonates, I have a question about it, just drop it in. Jasmine is going to be kind of programming it, and then afterwards we're going to go through the questions and have a discussion. All right, so we are technically in the community growth space, and I think a question or two questions that we think about when we think about community growth is, how do we make our spaces more inviting? That's one thing, and this is a non-exhaustive list, but how do we make our spaces more inviting? And the second thing we think about is, how can we help people better grasp the universe that they're in? And this is a question that we think a lot about. And it's a question that we really need to keep in mind if we want to grow the number of people that are contributing to our projects. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to Jess, who's going to talk to you about how powerful, how flexible, and also how complicated talk pages can be. Oh, I need to do this.
Thanks, Peter. As I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with, this is a talk page. This particular one is the English Wikipedia talk page connected to the article on Nellie Bly. I highly recommend you take a look. New York, New York. At its best, talk pages provide an environment for contributions to, for contributors to connect with like-minded folks, collaborate, brainstorm on thematically relevant topics, and then ultimately we hope that they are catalyzed to contribute their conclusions of these long conversations back into articles. Additionally, because Wikipedia is a unique and flexible product, it's a massively innovative space. Community members have created bots, gadgets, and even conventions that have defined the way that people work and behave on talk pages. It's something particularly unique about this Wikipedia as a space. However, it doesn't all the time, it's not always easy. Imagine if you were a new contributor and you come to this page. Can you identify where the conversations are even happening? You have to kind of scroll down and figure out where the discussion is and orient yourself to the space that looks more or less similar to the article page. When you're switching between reading to replying, so when you're going from here and you want to click to get into conversation, things can get a bit confusing. And finally, when you get to the point of posting comments or adding to the talk page, you're faced with a complex interface. There are absolutely no visual cues to show you where the convo starts, where it stops. Things look like code to an untrained expert eye, like everyone who is an experienced contributor. And it's not really sure where you go to sign your name, or how you sign your name, or what time you signed your name. And so there are no real cues as to how to communicate when you're writing, and no kind of guides. An additional layer that to all of this is that contributors who are familiar with what I would call modern internet affordances, that this is confusing to them. They have this expectation coming to the site that things should act a certain way. So here's a GitHub page, which is a site for mostly developers, an open source site for developers to work on their projects. And here you can clearly see, who is writing, and you can see where the paragraphs start, or the comments start and stop, and you can see the time that it was posted, and you can see very easily how you can respond to that. And so there's certain kind of affordances or expectations or ways that people work that, being on the modern internet, you've come to expect. So at this point, we're wondering, what can we do to make an environment more welcoming to newcomers? And the truth is that this has been attempted before, and Benoit from Community Engagement is going to talk to us about that. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Thank you. Okay. To cover the issues just described, we have indeed tried to improve the execution system. So it has been tried with something named Flow. So some of you may be familiar with it. So before Flow, we had Liquid Thread, but Liquid Thread was, well, it has limitations. So Flow has been created to cover the Liquid Thread's limitation and try to focus on what Jess described. So building Flow started in 2012, and yeah, well, during all the development period, it hasn't became a very universally used feature. So since because of that, we have decided to put the development on pause. As of now, we have 25 wikis using Flow. They are mostly small wikis, but we also have French, Chinese, and Wikidata using it. So the project has been paused, like I said, to work on something else. But in 2018, the idea of working again on talk pages has been considered. So we are going to discuss about that later. But now I'm going to show you the key features about Flow. So the design was much more aligned with web designs we know we are familiar with on the internet. Flow was based on topic namespace, so each conversation is a separate page. It was easier to monitor, and notifications were available, so it was possible to know if a new reply has been posted, to have a direct link to that reply. Both visual editing and wikitext editing were available for anyone to input new messages. And of course, the feature added some key elements like automatic signature, and also a way to mention other users. So the outcome, overall, we can see two kinds of feedback received during the development of Flow, or comments about Flow itself. On one hand, we have communities that we're aiming to grow up and to have more newcomers joining. So they were very happy to use it. The interface is simpler. It's easier to have people coming back because of notifications. It has been used on the help desk. Like here, it's a French Wikipedia help desk. And it also has been used by mentors through a beta feature. On the other hand, the way Flow was designed was technically built. The way it was technically built and visually designed was too far away from the features we are used to have on the wiki. So, for instance, the story system was not the same, and the page structure was very different. So, on most wiki, currently is only used on a few pages, and the differences between other pages has not allowed that universal adoption to happen. So Jess showed us reasons why discussion systems should be improved, but what to do? Should we improve Flow? Should we work on wikitext all pages? That was the question. So we have decided to try a new approach, and this is what Danny is going to show us.
All right, thank you, Benoit. Yeah, so as you said, we worked on it for 4 years. It's being used on 25 wikis, but on the biggest wikis, the most active contributors just won't use it. And over the last 6 months, we've learned a lot about why. We knew that what we needed to do was to stop development on Flow, to step back, and to use a new strategy, which is to learn more about what people need and what they struggle with, and then to build a product direction that's based on what we learn and not just on what we already believe that we know. The approach was grounded in a deep sincerity, which means that we have to tell people that their input is important, and then we actually have to go ahead and believe that that's true. We had to be in the right mindset and be rigorous about it all the time, that what we're going to learn is really important, and we're not just listening to hear ourselves talk. We have to involve as many people as possible. We have to ask open-ended questions, and then most important, resist the very powerful urge to have a predetermined outcome, something that we're trying to drive this whole consultation to. So we have to decide, like, we're going to go in, we have no idea where this is going, and that is going to emerge from the process. So in February, we started a 6-month Talk Pages consultation. It's a global consultation where we have some questions for active users about what works for them on Talk Pages, and then what obstacles they struggle with. And people hosted conversations. Just one example. on 20 wikis. There was 15 Wikipedia languages, as well as commons and Wikidata, and a couple of Wiktionaries. And people talked a lot. This represents the German Wikipedia consultation of phase 1. So yeah, we ended up with about 320 pages worth of material to look at and think about and kind of pull ideas from and come up with themes and then figure out what our product direction was going to be. One of the things that came out very strongly was this idea of mastering fine control, that very experienced users who work on complex and difficult workflows really like that flexibility of an open wikitext talk page, and that gives them a sense of mastery and fine control that helps them to do their work. And if we take that ability, that fine control ability, away from people just to make things easier for somebody else, it is gonna keep them from being able to do their work. That being said, there's a lot about open wikitext talk pages that experienced contributors really want help with. So signatures and indentation, being able to watch list a specific discussion, archiving old discussions. There's a lot of work that needs to get done. Another thing that we learned about during the consultation was that it's already been fixed on Russian Wikipedia, basically. Not quite, but there's an amazing volunteer developer who is on Russian Wikipedia called Jack, who built the house, who created a user script that folks are using. Unfortunately, it only works on Russian. That basically adds some new tools on top of Wikitext talk pages. For example, it handles like indentation signature for you. It helps to you to see like which comment is a response to which, and I'll show you. And then these awesome reply links besides each comment, and then also at the bottom, when you click it, it opens a text window that you can type in and then publish it. So like I said, like indentation's taken care of already, and it even allows you to watch list a single discussion that works, like a way that works pretty well most of the time. So this was stuff that when we were working on Flow, we thought that's impossible, it can't be done. And now we have sort of a really good inspiration to figure out kind of what can actually be done. Now, doing that, creating that kind of those workflows and those features in a way that actually works really well all the time means that we may have to make some small to medium changes in Wikitext conventions, what people maybe type, or the way that the software parses the information that they're getting. And that's going to be very interesting, but we know that it is possible to do that effectively because of the ping feature. This was a feature that was introduced about 6 years ago that helps you to notify somebody. They get a notification if you are replying to their conversation, or if it's just something that you want them to come and look at. It's a little finicky, and learning how to use it takes a minute, but a lot of people just changed the way that they worked and learned to use this new feature and do it in Wikitext because it was directly connected to something that was really, really useful for them. So this is our new product direction that we've come up with. That is a link to what is now the phase 2 report, which just got posted this week and sort of ends the consultation. And very briefly, in 2 sentences, the new direction is that unstructured Wikitext talk pages need to be improved and not replaced. So we're not going to rip talk pages out and build a new system to put in. And the changes that we make need to be directly related to tangible value for the people who are most affected by the change. That, I think, really is the lesson of the Flow project, is that that project made a lot of change, changed things a lot for very experienced contributors, and most of the benefit was actually for somebody else. And we've talked about this in the past as this is sort of experienced users versus newcomers, and I actually don't think it's about that. It's just on a more simple level, I need to change something, or something has changed for me, and I don't get any of the benefit. And so that's a big principle that we have to keep in mind as we continue to do this work. And so now I'm going to pass this back to Peter to talk about what the editing team is going to be doing with this product.
Thank you. Hello? Is this working? Did it go off? It's just not loud. Okay. It makes me feel good to hold though. Okay. So what's going to happen next? So just very directly, as far as Flow, we're not going to be developing any new features for it. We're going to continue to maintain it, and eventually, yes, it will be removed from some wikis. Okay. I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen when I said that, so that's good. So I think there were like 300 pages of comments. Was that on the first phase?
No.
It was the whole thing. Okay. So I think the thing that kind of communicates to me is like these aren't really questions that have clear answers. Like is a lot to talk about. And we have these guiding principles that are intended to help us figure out how we make the best choice, considering there's probably not going to be a very clear right and wrong for a lot of the product decisions that we're going to have to make. So we have some principles. The first one is, like I mentioned in the beginning, all the changes that we need to make need to promote collaboration. I think we could get tempted to say, hey, we made replying easier, the volume of replies went up, response time went up because we improved notifications. I think that's very important and like a very good detail to keep in mind. But all of the changes that we want to make are intended to help people work together more effectively. The second thing that Danny mentioned is that there are going to be problems that are going to emerge because we've introduced new features. But I think something that the Ping example really demonstrates is that if you create an environment that's open and flexible enough, then people can come up with their own solutions maybe quicker than we could and identify problems maybe that we couldn't either. So that needs to be really maintained and protected. We don't want to just break things. There are things that communities and volunteers are doing that are really valuable and important. And so if something is going to change, we need to be really mindful of how that happens. And that's exactly kind of what Danny's introducing of, well, you're changing something, what is the benefit, what is the cost to me for that change? Lower barriers. We're in technically the community growth space. So we really need to be mindful about making sure that the tools that we build are intuitive to newcomers. And that's just as simple as knowing how to interact with the page, but understanding, I think at more of a conceptual level, is like what is supposed to happen here. These talk pages are not discussion forums, and the software that we build needs to communicate that. So what are our next steps? We've talked about like principles, we've talked about things that have emerged through these phases, like how are we actually going to implement that? And the man with the camera, Ed Sanders, is going to talk about some of the kind of engineering work that's going to need to happen to make this all work.
Thanks, Peter. Right, so we've talked a lot to people about the features they'd like to see, and now our team, the editing team, is faced with the challenge of implementing them. Keeping the unstructured format poses some technical problems for us. With Flow, every comment was stored as a separate piece of data with metadata describing who wrote it, when they wrote it, and who they were replying to. But with this new approach, we're going to have to extract that information from a single page. You can think of this like the difference between a spreadsheet and a Word document. With the spreadsheet, we can put each item in a separate row with separate columns for each piece of data. But with this big Word document, we just have to search really carefully for the specific piece of information we need to find. So while I was saying that documents are completely unstructured, and you could technically write anything on them, they do have a lot of social conventions that give them a loose structure. So what our team has to look at is how reliably we can extract that structured information from the page. So Danny said earlier when he was talking about those gadgets that these things work on some wikis and they work pretty well most of the time. So we need to think about what that reliability means. Does it mean 90% of the time, 99%, or 99.999%? And what are the edge cases that we have to worry about? How do people indent their comments? Is it the same on every wiki? For things like outdent templates or multi-line comments or comments that are partially indented, do we need to do something else? Another part of finding structure in the pages is looking for signatures. That tells us who wrote the comment and when. but are the signature formats that people are using, are there going to be some signatures that we can't identify? So do we need to introduce new rules for signatures or a new way of generating the signatures? And what do we do about unsigned comments, for example? So we'll be asking if we need to introduce any new wikitext syntax. And any syntax that we do introduce will only be useful if people in the community actually use it. We actually were speaking to the parsing team yesterday about these very issues. And they're really excited about this, and I think they're going to talk a little bit about it at the hackathon showcase tomorrow at 2:30, is it, in the main hall, which is one of the best things you can attend at Wikimedia, so definitely be there. So yeah, people ask for a lot of other features in the consultation, such as archiving, notifications, and other things. So we have to know,
2:30.
Perfect, thank you.
Is that a timing thing? Sorry.
No, for the hackathon.
Oh, thank you. Right,
Yeah.
yes. 5 seconds here.
Yeah.
Archiving.
Yes, talk to us about archiving.
I got thrown off track there. Okay. Archiving, right. So not everyone does archiving the same way. Sometimes it's subpages, sometimes it's moving pages, sometimes it's just copying and pasting the stuff off. So which of those do we need to support, or do we need to build new tools to standardize how archiving is done? So for example, at the moment, if you link to a thread which is done by the section and someone changes that section heading, then that link will break. So can we fix that with new syntax, or is there some other approach we can take? For notifications, how do we reliably tell if someone replied to you, or a thread that you're in, and what if the subject of the thread there changes? Do we need more wikitext syntax to support those edge cases? So as you can see, our team is going to be faced with a lot of really significant questions that we just don't have the answers to yet, and we're going to need your help to come up with the best possible solutions. So I hope you can engage with this process. Who am I handing off to?
Are you handing off to me? Yes.
That was easy.
Yeah. So as it relates to kind of key questions, there are 4 that we have in mind right now. Hopefully there are other questions that we can go into that Jasmine will highlight, but these are just the ones that we kind of came to today with. One is kind of how do we measure collaboration? How do we make sure that we're incrementally building features that improve the way that people work together? Like I mentioned, you don't simply want to look at response rate, response timing, comment volume. Those are maybe proxies for collaboration. So the question is, how do we best measure something as abstract, I guess, as collaboration? How can we make sure that as many people as possible continue to stay involved in our product development process? I think a big question is what is software's role in teaching cultural norms? How opinionated should the software be in suggesting to people what happens in this space? Should it be more of a social process where people look and can see the behavior, or should the process take more of an opinion and suggest that this is a place for people to collaborate? And like Ed mentioned, what technical changes are we going to make people collaborating and working together more effective? All right, so those are our questions. This is the last thing. Getting involved. We need your help, and there are kind of 3 things. The first, the phase 2 report, as Danny mentioned, has been posted. So please read that. You see something, put a message on the talk page. We want to know. The second thing, we have a project page. It's still a itty-bitty project page, but you can watch it. And if you feel compelled to want to be invited to conversations very early about questions that we have, you can just add your name to the Getting Involved section there. And I think that is it. And we will end with our discussion, which hopefully people have been dropping things into. So I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, this one. Does this work? I don't think it's actually working.
I think it might be working for live.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, there's the discussion. What kind of questions do we have?
We have questions and we have a lot of thoughts. So
Nice. All right. Should we turn the lights on and kill the projector? Or maybe leave the projector on but turn the lights on? Too much? All right. All right.
Wasn't such a brilliant idea.
All right. Hey. guys.
I mean, the test work. Don't do it.
All right.
Should
Should we sit? Yeah, let's
You
sit.
can just repeat back the question.
We'll
and
do
the
that.
answer.
You can join Etherpad.
Oh, yeah, we could do that.
Can we ask offline only online? Or can
What
we
do you
ask-
say?
can
No,
we
you
ask
can't talk.
personally?
This is no talking.
Yes, you
Yes,
can.
you can
We
talk.
figure we'll
Sorry.
like.
So we'll do a mix of both
Yes.
verbal questions as well as questions from the Etherpad. I saw there were some thoughts. If you feel brave enough to also say what those thoughts are, and we have a discussion about it, that would be great. And then I asked for the live stream, if you're answering the question, if you could kind of like repeat back what the question was in the mic, that would be helpful for the folks on live stream. So one of the first questions we had here was,
Jasmine, you're not speaking into the mic right now, so the question can't hear you.
yeah, they're gonna repeat it back
Yep,
when they answer.
I'm doing it. Hey, everybody on the live stream. How you
Yeah.
doing? We're gonna ask. I'm gonna repeat back, and it'll be fine. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Question coming up.
So there was a question about whether or not the team thought about concepts of discuss space and the latest talk page initiative and how it could be unified. And then along with that was, is there a way to integrate the former into Media Wiki?
It turns out I cannot repeat that question because it's very complicated.
Unified on the screen?
It's, I think no, because then it's like super distracting for trying to actually do stuff. Let me just see.
You wanna?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will try.
Okay, I can repeat that.
Yeah, that's
So the question was whether or not the team thought about the concept of a discuss space and the latest talk page initiative and how it could be unified, and whether or not the former could be integrated into Media Wiki.
I would like to learn more about. Is that the Wikimedia space that folks are talking about? The new like.
Oh, discuss with a Q?
No, it's not.
Yeah. So sorry. If anybody wants to like come on mic and
Explain
clarify
what
what you mean.
discuss space is, I guess.
I had this question with the discuss, please. Was it a question? Yes. The question was that we have. Okay.
Oh, I see.
So
Someone's posting the link.
there is a new space vmwithlabs.org surface which is introduced just recently, and this is a platform for communication, and now there is a parallel development of another. Let's improve the talk pages. Can't we somehow unify these efforts? The idea maybe integrate into MediaWiki and use in MediaWiki.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand. All right. Yes, the new Wikimedia space is supposed to be a place where we can unify a lot of the communication, especially from the foundation, to contributors, and then also from contributors and movement organizers who want to spread the word about what they're doing. That is right now just using its own set of software, but I believe that they're using Discourse.
Yeah. So yes, the space is using Discourse at the moment. It hasn't been designed. It has been designed for what Danny described. So it hasn't been designed to support all the workflows we can have on the wikis, like deletion processes, like requests for something, like village pump or help desk. It's not possible. Also, if you try to draft an article, you need to work in a similar environment than the one you use on the wiki. So switch from one environment to another may be complicated.
Yes, that's why it's sort of on Wiki, we're saying instead of taking something and replacing talk pages, we gotta actually do it. Is there another question? Is there anybody who wants to ask a question live?
All right, then more questions if no one wants to ask one. So the next question we have here, so there's two questions. I'm going to ask them, even though they're from two different people, because it kind of is getting at the same thing. It's, is this initiative only about user talk pages or generally talk pages or any discussion page like Village Pump? And then what's your team going to do, I'm assuming, to the discussions outside of talk page namespace, such as Village Pump in each wiki's project namespace?
Yeah. Is this how it works? No, okay. I might need help with this question, but I can definitely answer the first part. So yeah, the scope of the project is to include talk pages in all namespaces. How exactly different namespaces will be affected will, I think, be the result of what we actually build, which is not yet clear. We have a list of features, but when and how they're sequenced is still to be decided. So I guess the short answer is yes, all namespaces will be affected. How exactly they'll be affected, we're not exactly sure yet. Is that?
Just one thing. Yeah, just one thing. Yeah, it's obvious when something's in a talk namespace that they will have these features. And so it's the question really about like the project pages that are village bumps and stuff like that. And so there's a few different options. One of them might be that folks add a magic word to a project page where you want to have the talk feature enabled. That was one of the questions that we asked actually in phase 2 of the consultation, and so you can see some sort of discussion about that in the phase 2 report.
All right. Does anyone want to ask a question verbally?
Hello, I'm on the Wikipedia in French. I'm the one responsible for bringing flow to the project Astronomy. So I was wondering, because we have a lot of projects in the Wikipedia in French, and there were even an attempt at changing the village bump to flow, and I was wondering how the legacy is going to be treated, and especially toward people using these projects and that have hoped to see improvement, because contrary to me, they haven't noticed they were supposed to have progress on it on the meta page, and it was discarded instead for integrating OpenStreetMap cartography. So I was wondering, how do you intend to deal with the projects that used specifically this tool, and especially very active projects like the equivalent of Women in Red on Wikipedia? Thank you.
Yeah, take that.
Great. Yes, so that's a good question, and thank you for using Flow. I'm really glad that that's been helpful for you. Essentially, there's the places that are using Flow right now and are using it successfully, there's no reason to take it away from those folks before we've actually built anything. The idea is sort of in the future, once we've got a talk page features and system that really works, and that will help people that are currently using the Flow boards, then at that point, the idea for the legacy projects is to export those discussions from Flow and then put them into wikitext talk page format. And so those conversations still exist. You've got the whole archive of everything that's happened so far. That is a ways down the road where we have that. I'm resisting the urge to say, oh, that'll be somewhere around like X time period, and I'm not going to do that. Because we don't know. But does that answer your question about?
Well, part of the issue for these projects is currently there are a lot of topics that have been opened because the projects, and especially Les 100 Pages, the project with about the women in red on the Wikipedia in French, are very active, and there are a lot of issues to retrieve archives currently, and there are a lot of initiatives that are currently being burned by newer topics.
Right.
I think as I'm thinking about this response, I'm wondering if it's going to be at all satisfying, so please tell me if it's not. I think part of the reason that we have these principles that we shared is because there are questions like the one that you're asking that we can't up here answer and say like, yes, you know, this is when it's going to change. this is what the change is going to be, but I think you're exactly speaking to what we had in mind when we drafted them, which is like, yo, I depend on this thing to do something very important, and if you're going to change it, I need to make sure that the work that I'm already doing can still be done. And I think that's exactly why we have these principles, to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to not making your life harder. Does that make sense?
No, I'm sorry. So I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. I got that question backwards, and I apologize. I now understand that what you're asking for is you're using Flow on these projects, and it's not working for you, and you don't. Like, the thing that's not working is that the archives are irretrievable, and that new stuff kind of overwhelms the old stuff. Is that correct?
It's a little more complicated. Can I say one precision?
Absolutely.
To make it clearer. The issue is I got kind of feedback on and off Wiki about these users that were frustrated about what we call in French silence radio, about the advancement of the projects, and they were complaining about the same issues and bugs not being addressed, even like, sorry, we got some kind of roadblock somewhere, and we can't work on this right now, but we are trying to find a solution later. And there were no communication about this. There were silence radio about this, and I'm more frustrated because about the silence, because other people were not warned and still complain for years about this. And I'm really afraid that when you deploy the new tool, there's people who were very enthusiastic about testing new features, but will be very distrusting about your future work.
Yeah, I completely understand that. But yeah, I think there was confusion about what we were going to do and sort of figuring out how we were going to handle things and what our strategy was. What I can say about sort of reaching out to people and kind of making them aware of kind of where we're going and what our current strategy is. We tried to spread the word about the consultation as far as we possibly could, and so there was a while we didn't know what we were going to do, and then kind of going into the consultation, I feel like we kind of announced, here's the thing that we're working on. But I'm very sorry for leaving you hanging and leaving all those people hanging for so long, thinking that there's going to be a solution for this problem.
Just tell them your story. I'm only one reading meta from there.
Yeah, no, and I'm
that's
very
the
sorry.
main issue. I
Yeah,
just want them to know and not be surprised and then become very aggressive with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, and I very much am sorry for kind of allowing kind of our confusion to then translate into just like silence and not being helpful.
Did you have something you want to add before I go to the next question?
I just wanted to quickly say that we're going to be doing lots of user testing, and we're going to be doing it very publicly. We're going to be writing blog posts to share our design process, as we did with other projects in the editing team. I'm brand new to this project, so I don't totally know all the history, but I can speak to the fact that it's stressful when you see something that you love and then it goes away and is replaced by something new. So we want to do something where everything is unexpected, and there's nothing unexpected, and it's a graceful transition. So we're going to be testing in editathons, we're going to be testing online, and we're going to be testing on like usertesting.com with new users, and we are hoping that people in this room are going to sign up for additional user testing to participate. And so you can actually do that if you go onto the project page. Yes, to get involved. So just follow that wiki link. Thank you.
Yeah. So you actually addressed the next question, so thank you. There's one other question here, and then I'll go back into verbal. Was about at our current stage, do we think that we'll have a usable product by the end of the development period? And so I thought that was probably a good question to ask.
What is the development period? Can we
It's
clarify?
essentially asking, like, are we going to be iterating? Are we going to have a fully? Are we going to keep going with the project? To be very young.
Yeah, what is why don't you share in general, like what is the development process and when do you think you'll have a usable product? Maybe
Got
that's
it.
a better way to frame it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let me repeat the question. So I think the question was, when are we gonna have something?
When we're done, are we going to actually have a full
Got
feature,
it.
as opposed to what we did, which was deploy stuff that didn't get finished?
Got it. So I think something important to clarify is we're not gonna build a whole brand new thing and be like, hey, it's ready. Ideally, this is a very gradual process of us incrementally improving things that already exist. I think you mentioned reply links, indenting, adding your signature. We want to start with small features as opposed to sitting in a room for however many months and then saying like, hey, we have this big new thing, please come try it. As far as the process, I think Jess touched on that a little bit. This kind of phase of the consultation is finished. The outcome are these principles and these learnings, as well as these kind of list of features. And the process for us developing those features will be one that will be very public, and the hub of that will be the project page. Whoever asked that question, do you feel like that was satisfying?
I'm gonna just grab this.
Let me comment, just the sentence, your answer.
Sure.
I wanted to ask something very similar, which is in the Hungarian community we partially implemented liquid threads many years ago, but it was broken later. And at the beginning of this year we decided that we need flow, mainly because of newcomers, and we wanted to implement, but then we had an agreement that we wait until the end of the consultation, and then we decide what will happen, let's see. And now the decision is that we cannot implement flow anymore because it's a discontinued product, so let's wait until the next product will come, which can be half year, 1 year, and gradually some years until the full product will be available. The problem is that if a newcomer comes and we explain that using Wikipedia is very easy, just click on edit and you can use a visual editor. But if you have a question, just go to the village pump and learn how the wikitext editor works. This won't work. So actually for a newcomer, it's not possible to ask anything. And if we have to wait now years until the new product will be available, this is not the best approach. Or I don't know what is the better one, but it is a problem.
Yeah, you got it?
We'll have one more question.
Yeah, okay. I want to
So let's address this question, and then I'm going to go here because he has had his hand raised for a little while.
Cool. I think what I'm hearing from you is like, are we going to have to wait years till we have something new to use? Because we've got newcomers that are coming. This stuff is hard to use, and we want to provide a solution. Does that feel like, yeah. The goal of this is like, we have a direction, we have these principles. Beginning next quarter, which is the end of September, we're going to start thinking of little features. I think the distinction that I want to draw is that we're not going to bake a whole brand new product. We're not going back to wherever we all live and saying, we're going to revolutionize talk pages. This consultation produced a very tangible list of workflows that we want to improve. We're talking something as small as inserting like a reply link.
I know I won't be popular in some visual editor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe can we talk?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah.
So the next group here.
It's 4:45. They're ready to go.
Okay. Yeah. I'm free. I think we're all free, so we will hang out outside and.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you everybody.
Yeah.